Okay, so to make the best possible finalized storyboard you can make, you can go back to your Photoshop file before you downsampled its size. So if I go to image size now, because this isn't about timing or the animation, I have 5.79 by 5.79 inches at 200 pixels per inch. It means each frame is about 4 megabytes. And that's a really pretty good resolution for a multi-panel sequential image. So I could print basically a comic book of 9 frames at poster size at this resolution. So if I want to be able to do it, I can use the full resolution file. What I need to do is, just like when I rendered my video, is I have to go to my frames and then say flatten frames into layers and get rid of all the frames underneath of that. So I have these 69 frames. This is before I deleted any frames, right, for my final timing. So I just have every option possible. And then just to make it less confusing, I'm going to delete all the frames underneath frame 1 from this set. So there we are. And you never know how many layers you can actually create in Photoshop until you start animating. Okay, now I am going to immediately get rid of all of these. So select all of the timeline frames, drag them to the trash so they don't mess up my layers, because it's all about the layers now. So basically I have 69 finished high resolution shots to choose from to make my finished storyboard. And I'm basically trying to imitate, let me see if I have it, my sketch. So let me get my sketch out there. I'm trying to do a finished version of this, or at least that reflects the animation I did. And I actually stuck pretty close to my storyboard this time. So what I'm going to do is find the middle frame. You know, usually that's the point of first kind of excitement where the transformation really starts to happen. So I need to choose that. So I have to turn off all the frames, find it in the middle. And luckily mine's pretty visually recognizable. It's when he gets hit by lightning. So I have a bunch to choose from. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But I need it to tell the story in one picture. And that's pretty good. I could do that. I could do that. I could do this. But I think I like that one because it kind of shows his skin being burned off. So I'm going to use that as my middle frame. Man, I even have other options. I could do that. Tons of options, tons of frames. So if this is my kind of pivotal center frame, now I'm going to grow a new format around that, a new canvas. So I say image canvas size. Knowing that this is basically 6 inches, I'm going to increase it. It really depends on what dimensions you have. If it was 8 by 8 inches, I would make it 30 by 40. But since it's 6 inches, I might make it like 24 wide by, let's try 36. It's probably a little too much, but that's okay. I'm going to have it come from the center. I don't need to set an extension color because it's going to be just empty space. Okay. Yeah, it's a little too tall, but it will work. And then I'll crop it down at the end. So this is the problem with Photoshop. It's a wonderful raster program, gives you control of every pixel. It has never been meant to be a layout program. And that's why if we were taking a graphic design course, we would learn a little bit about Photoshop, but we'd also learn a lot about InDesign, which is Adobe's layout program, which help you set type and set pictures. But these are the tricks I'm going to give you for doing a basic layout in Photoshop. And it's to always start with a canvas size from the center. That is the surest way to center something in Photoshop. So I know this is perfectly centered, top to bottom, side to side. Now what I'm going to do is fill the background in, make a new blank layer, fill it with white, edit fill, 100% white, normal mode, drop that behind my first frame. Then I am going to go back to the layer I have selected. It'll be the only one that's turned on, frame 38. And I'm going to make sure that my guides are going to snap to the edges of my pixels. So the edges of my pixels in this layer are right around this box. And so now I'm going to draw guides. And I do that by having the rulers showing, which you can turn on. This is all under the view options. But you can turn your rulers off and on with Command R. I like to just always have them on. And then you can, with the move tool, you can click on the ruler and drag down visual guides. So I'm going to do one on the top and the bottom and on each side of my frame. Now the beauty is any other layer that I move will now snap to those guides. But I don't want them to all be exactly side by side. I want there to be a space in between each of my frames. And I don't want there to be too narrow a space, because the space represents the time that passes in between the frames. So what do I do now? I'm going to turn on under view options again. I'm going to show grid, which the shortcut is Command apostrophe. Now with my grid, I just need to pick an even amount from each side. And because my original is not quite an even inch, that's why the grid is really handy. So I'm going to do a new guide, basically 2 little grid boxes up from the border on each side. So that's equally spaced. This is again using Photoshop as a layout tool, which it's ill-suited for, but this works. And now I can hit Command apostrophe, get rid of the grid, and see now the little nest it creates for my other 8 panels. Now that first panel might be frame 1. And here I'm going to use the move tool, but I'm going to have auto select unchecked, so that if frame 1 is selected, it will only move frame 1. So it's like dealing from the bottom of the deck. And I nest it and it will snap to that position. Next, and I can refer to my sketch. Let's see, let's narrow this so I can see it all on one screen. Okay, so next I want to show my character being introduced. So I could do that. Or if I don't want to be that kind of anxious about it, I could try to show an example. Let's see. Where my character isn't quite all the way in the frame yet. So not quite in place. Maybe like frame 7. I got him there pretty quick. Let's try frame 4. There we go. So he's just coming in on the side. Then he's moving up and down and the storm's coming. So that's going to be quite a bit later, but before the midpoint. I usually like to color the midpoint frame too, because there's a lot of frames here. So frame 38 is my midpoint. So I'm going to color that red. So it got dark really quick. Storm's starting to come in. He's looking up. He's kind of noticing it. That tells the story nicely. And it's just a lot of trial and error if you have as many frames as I do. Yep, don't want that one. Now I need him to be surprised and scared by the storm. It's always darkest. And not those. Not that. Yeah, I think that will work. All right, next, I have to show the charred husk of him. And now it's a little bit easier because now I'm dealing from the top of the deck. So as soon as I turn one on, it will show it. So that's an option. Let's see. And now you're like a comic book editor trying to pick the best moment from all your different frames. But that one's pretty nice. I like how it goes from a thick bolt to the thin, and it shows the remains. Okay. Now I have to show the ashes. Whoops. And I have to show them start to be gobbled up. And now I can actually turn on auto select layer because I can see the ones I want. I don't have to worry about the exact one being fully selected. And I got to show my creature kind of sniffing up the dust. I think that's the funnier part. So that's an option. Maybe an earlier one is even better. Yeah, I like that one. Turn that one off, move this one in. All right. So notice that even though my animation loops, my storyboard does not need to loop. If I hit Command semicolon, I can hide my guides. And I can just kind of look at this and see if it makes sense. I like that it's pretty visually dynamic. I might question this one. Maybe go a little brighter. Yeah, maybe just one frame later, this one. Shows a little bit more of that dusty quality of it. Or maybe not. Gosh, hard to decide. Yeah, I'll keep that one. All right, so now I don't want to have to save extra pixels, so I'm going to crop it, but only from the top and bottom. And to do that, I hold down Option, and it will crop only from the top and bottom like so. And if I am a true design nerd, and I am, I will crop it a little bit unevenly, so there's more space on the bottom than the top. That's called a weighted bottom, because our eye tends to make things fall. And then on the sides, I'll narrow it up just a little bit too. It's just white pixels. They could always be added back in. I think I want kind of the proportions of a Polaroid picture. All right. So now I'm going to save this file, save as, with all its different layers and different options as my storyboard. Not my storyboard sketch, my final storyboard, as a PSD file. And then I'll save it as a JPEG to upload. And then I have all the components I need for this assignment. And I want that JPEG call it Storyboard Final. I want that JPEG to be preferably close to 5 megabytes, but not over 5 megabytes. So 4.3 it will be, which reduces it a lot from 1 gigabyte with all those layers. Okay, then I can close it. And now I'm ready to